Hi, and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Project Manager podcast for Sunday, the 24th of September 2023. This is your host, Nigel Creaser, and today we've got the second part of my interview with Ondrej Papanek, the Agile Coach. So enjoy. So if you're listening to this, that means you've had a week's gap from episode 1, part 1, which means that you've had a week where you've been wondering what on earth was going to be said next in the next pieces, wondering what other nuggets of information were coming from my guest. And you've had a week where you haven't been able to apply those nuggets because you didn't know they existed or what they were, which is a little bit frustrating, really, because imagine how much more efficient, productive, or amazing you could have been. But you know there's a way around it. You know that you can pop along to Patreon, www.patreon.com/sundaylunchpm, or to Spotify, have a look at the feed, and there's a little lock. Click on the lock and it'll ask you to pay. It's the price of a coffee. That's it. A month. And you'll get everything a week early. And you won't have bits like this in it with me wittering on about becoming a patron and things like that. So have a think. And anyway, I'll shut up now because you're probably thinking, just get on with it, Nigel. So yeah, here's the second part of the show. So I have a number of sponsors, affiliate links in the way that it's set up that have kindly allowed me to share their services, really. The first one is Mike Clayton, and Mike runs online PM courses, and it is a great resource for getting those fundamentals of project management trained, reasonably priced, and Mike presents it in an accessible and clear manner. You can check out some of his videos on his YouTube channel and kind of give you a view of where they are. But the code for that, if you go to nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, all one word, lowercase, that'll redirect you to it. There's very different levels that you can buy. You can buy individual courses, you can buy pathways as well, if you like. And I get a kickback off those. Mike kindly shares me that. So if you do jump on and use it, I hope you find it really useful. I think he has money back guarantees and things like that as well. So there's very limited risk on that. So jump on that, and that again, it's nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, and enjoy. So thinking, you mentioned a few organisations earlier on, we've mentioned in your intro that you've worked with. I'm guessing that not everything's gone swimmingly every time you've worked with one of those organisations, and war stories are always interesting from a delivery point of view. Tell us, what sort of projects have you had that have been, or organisations that have been particularly challenging, and what were the challenges, and what did you do to get over them?
Sure. So in some organization was mostly working with IT, but also another organization was focusing mostly in Agile and transformation. I want to say I was also working with one of the Swedish fashion brand, and I had the opportunity to work with a very design focused people where they are more creative instead of coding code. And I find out their mindset is a little bit different. They like to creating something, make something, enjoyable, they're very proud of, might be design, might be make, some sketches, some 3D model, might be some animated video, which can be reflected in different ways for marketing purposes, for print out and under the social media and other stuff. And the one things, but really open my mind, they're lacking a little bit of discipline. I have to remind them, we have a sprint review. Do you have everything ready to showcase what we accomplish in sprint, right? They like to use like digital tools like Miro and Miro and Whiteboard, where they like to put all the stickies together and connect them, right? They don't like go to Jira and make this user story there. So they really prefer do everything in Miro, create a user story deck on the sticky, and it's there. But then we lacking like who is the assignee, story points, and this kind of things. Luckily, Miro has integration between Jira and the digital whiteboard, which is Miro. So we use the plugin, and was I think it's very good because they started the, let's say, the user story description, the name, in the yellow sticky in Miro, but in the moment they can flip it, connect to the Jira and connect sprint. That means they come later to the Jira tickets or story or other epics maybe even, and they have the description, like the title of it, and later they can assign to correct person, and they can go even like deeper, right? What is about the user story, why we're delivering this, and so far so forth. And this was kind of very new for me. I have to even remind them, you have user story, but it's just title. It's empty. There's no description. So what I did, I kind of print screen them and remind them on Teams, hello, please fill this for me. Otherwise, we cannot start sprint.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I know I had a scenario where we were running with using the Jira board, and the team were creating all of the different things on there, and no, but all they were was a list. There was no sizing on it. There was no uh, detailing. It was kind of, how long is that? It's a design document. How long is that going to take? Well, it's going to take a while, and it's kind of, and I'm there going, and again, trying to understand, are we going to finish it in the sprint? Are we able to put in that sprint? What's the burn down going to look like? And I was never able to get that data. I was so frustrated because I couldn't get that story point view, or even when I think I did eventually, but even when we did, the problem was that a lot of these things were going to last for several weeks. They hadn't broken them down into pieces of work that could be there. And they were very technical people. They were writing technical documents, and maybe that was the wrong thing to be doing at that time. But it might, you could, in theory, you can break it down into chunks and say, well, this is where I'm going, so you can track progress. But to them, it didn't matter. But I had nothing to hold their feet to the fire. And it's like same when you're doing I kind of, nobody knew when they were going to finish it, and therefore something that someone else was dependent on the team didn't know it, so it never quite gelled. And I maybe I was just noticing lots of memes of pictures on a Friday where you got pictures of a person sitting there tapping something or drumming their fingers, and it's kind of like Scrum Master waiting for team to update Jira tickets. And it kind of seems to be an endemic, or a project manager or whatever. It seems to be quite an endemic scenario that there is that resistance on reporting, and I don't think this is agile, because I know throughout my career, convincing people to understand that telling someone you've done a piece of work is part of doing the piece of work. It isn't a bit of admin on top. Reporting on what we're doing. We're in organizations because we want to leverage the capabilities of lots of people. If all those people do stuff and never tell anyone that they've done it, well, no one knows that it's been done. So it's kind of, yeah, and no one knows that they can start the next bit. So that whole reporting process has to be, and it's difficult, I find, to get that value to those individuals who are doing that. And I wonder whether that's because I've not worked in these proper self-managing teams where actually that updating within themselves, as long as John's done his code, he can tell Jackie, she can test it. Why do we need to put it on the board? Jackie knows she can test it. I just told her in the stand up. It's those kind of things of how you get that value of that reporting, as being what's in it for me, other than it keeps the scrum master or the product owner or the EA project manager off their back. How have you addressed those sort of challenges?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As you mentioned, like Jira is a great tool. It's getting better, but still have some limitation. And I think we shouldn't see this as reporting tools. Yes, stakeholders like it, some managers, but I see this as a collaboration tools because it's about transparency. So me as Scrum Master, I can see what is in to-do column, right? What is done. Maybe they have another streamline, like what is blocker, and we can use it later to address it, right? Because otherwise we might not achieve a sprint goal of our delivery of our increment. There are some good plugins for Jira which help us to get notification when someone move user story from to do, doing, or even done, to get a notification on Slack and other platforms. That's also optional, but I see challenge, like me as Scrum Master or even Agile coaches, we finish the sprint and okay, we get some report from Jira, it's quite basic, show us how many user stories we had and how many we accomplished, right? The kind of capacity as well. But it's quite difficult to see who accomplished more. But it's not about comparing, but it's also about transparency, who done less. So I have to go deeper and see, okay, John accomplished this and this, Andrew was sick, was 0. Jeremy was maybe, half of it. I think there are ways how we can address it. Like story points are most optional. It's not a must. It's not prescribed, And this is one way how we can have story points. We can have different, gummy bears, whatever, and whatever we use for kind of estimating. I think maybe try to go with a measurement or user stories and later implement them. And also takes sprints, to establish good delivery. We cannot compare us with other teams. Other teams might have doing something else. It's not about comparison. I see Jira as a transparency to see where we are today, what we are delivering, and what we are focusing on. That's my takeaway mostly for Jira. It's a software as we can see as a tools to help us to see where we are today and where we are heading to, and have a little bit track of information what's happening. Otherwise, yes, I can ask Johnny, what have you done today? Oh yeah, I fixed the bug, in Java. Now we can release it. Maybe finish with sprint, we release it and see, oh, the bug is still there, right? And that's wrong. It's good for transparency. You're able to also connect Jira with documentation, for example, Confluence. So when it's the bug, we can document how to fix it and connect the bug to the user story when this was discovered. And later, when the bug comes again, we can just search in Confluence and find, oh, this was in this scenario for this and this release. And of course, Jira can be connected with other tools, which really helping us connect everything together. I don't see this as a glue connected together, but simplify our processes. If we have to go just Confluence, disconnect it from Jira and maybe put just a link, but instead we can put the link and just click on it and we are there. Maybe, as I mentioned, we have something planned like story mapping in Miro, and now we have digital forms, so we don't have to do double work. We just connect with Jira, and we can take the user stories and put in a product backlog and later into the sprint. So I see tools as a, way which simplify our processes, our work. of course, we shouldn't use tools too much, because sometimes, like, I come to this organization, they have one tools for design, one other tools for cloud services, and they have different providers, each providers or vendors using the different platform. Sometimes I feel it's kind of junk of tools. So sometimes the tools might be an
I
obstacle,
think
not
there
a
is that I found
solution.
myself before, but where maybe when I've been kicking off pieces of work where I've been, I'm quite a, because of its simplicity, I quite like Microsoft Planner. So in some, not so much in full delivery projects, but more along the where we've got continuous improvement, internal continuous improvement projects, where it's kind of um, using it as a place to gather and everyone can access through Teams and stuff like that. I find it quite useful, but I know that there is a level of integration with those items then into Outlook, and then beyond that to the to do items. So essentially, you'll have a ticket that's yours on the planner board that is also showing up on your Microsoft To Do, which is also showing up in your tasks in Outlook, and then the next logical step for me is integration with Microsoft Project. Um, so that you can be in that situation where whichever tool you prefer as an individual, you can go in, you can see what's on the needed, you can update it, you can mark it complete, you can, I think that's where it really adds the power, because all of us prefer different tools. And actually, most organizations of a certain size have got a lot of these tools. And with a little bit of thinking, a little bit of tweaking, they can all be the same thing, and it doesn't matter where you are. And I think that's a productivity goal I've been trying to get to. And yet, Microsoft SharePoint list, you can, and then once you've got that list, so you say you've got your board, you've got the to-do list, you've got it all collated, you've got it in a plan. You can then use Power BI to do burn down charts, and you can start getting in that whole uh, integration of task management and planning and collaboration and documentation. And I can see maybe it's I focus on the tools a little bit too much, but I can see this panacea that would I can see it in my mind, and I play with it every so often to try and get it to work. And there's always somewhere there's a little trip wire where it doesn't quite integrate the way I want to, in order for me to be able to go, yeah, yes, let's just use all this. But I'll get there. I'll find it. I'll work it out, even if it's writing Power Automate scripts myself.
I think so, you're right, and especially like Microsoft, they have the tools for collaboration, the kind of whiteboard as well. They have Teams, and Teams you can integrate with others, like closer to Outlook, so you can see the meetings there. And quite recently also, Microsoft have some small application in Teams, like to-do lists and this kind of things. It's really beneficial. A Microsoft project and Microsoft Dynamic and other things. So if you have one environment from one company, explore what they have, so you don't have to look for others tools maybe. And it's much better because it's much better integrated. In the moment when you have one software provider and you bring other one, it takes some time to integrate it together. Sometimes you can via API, sometimes it's quite difficult, integrate it. So yeah, that's a good point. I totally agree. Sometimes I end up in companies like the huge companies, they have 1,000 employees. They have one tools for one department, and the other department has something else, like even like alternative. And like, why do you choose another tools if you're already using alternative, which is more suitable? Instead, invest of resources or agencies who can make some, beneficial software, something customized for you, or make maybe a small department who only creating tools and collaboration or integration for the whole organization. You save more, and you have full control
It's
on
funny
it as
because
well.
you've got to where you have all these little fiefdoms, and I'm probably one of these fiefdoms that creates his own thing and tries to use some of the software we've got in there, but I don't go out and buy software. But I think I wonder whether there's, um, the bigger the organization, the more likely that is to happen because there's bigger organizations have their taste of fancy. But in smaller organizations, there's probably a little bit more flexibility as well. So you can go out and just install software on your laptop, although that's changed these days with a lot of the cyber stuff. So protecting it. And I just wonder whether I look at things that are the tooling we can get bogged down by. We've got all this tooling. We've spent several £1 million on Jira licenses, on whatever licenses to do to Primavera type things, or anything. Any of these software companies now, you can buy an agile toolkit, I'm sure, and I think it makes me wonder, how do you get, because those tools are great, but if you haven't got an agile mindset in the organization, you might as well not have them, had you?
That's a very good point. I think like mostly IT department designing this kind of tools like Office 365 integration, Microsoft projects, and also together with Teams and other things. But I come in the company and say, well, you're trying to do something, but people who designed this, they don't know so much about agile processes, right? And this kind of things. And I think when I say Scrum Master, Agile Coach should know about this kind of tools and even advise the organization how should this be designed. Otherwise, the tools might be more problem than solution for them, because the tools might be limited. The organization maybe doesn't have the resources or the knowledge. When you don't have knowledge, try to invest. Someone who has the knowledge. I'm talking about vendors who can design the software for you and is more suitable for the Scrum team or even organization moving to Agile.
It's interesting. It makes me think about organizations again. Going back to my question earlier about the problems that you had with organizations you go in there. I suppose if I'm a business owner, or if I'm a person tasked with setting up a program to turn my organization agile, what one thing would you say that is what would you recommend that they do to make to as a first step?
It's a very good question. I think it will be find out what they want to accomplish with the tools or software, what we put in and what we get out from it. If you implement Agile, okay, can we report? Can we have sprints there? Can we have assignee for each user story or task or epic, whatever is it? Is it suitable, or even it is customizable? If it's not, or it's very limited, probably it's not good tools for us. Probably we have to look at for alternative.
And I suppose that you've got businesses that are implementing agile and have stalled maybe. What would you say to those organizations who say, like, well, we've tried to do it, and I guess you've probably been into organizations that have tried to be agile, turn agile, and have either hit the rocks with it or have given up on it, and then are retrying it again because they think they should. What again, a similar sort of question. What is the most important thing that you talk to them about when you go into those organizations?
That's a very good question. Like I end up sometimes in businesses or companies where they try to do agile, but they failed. They realize, okay, sometimes was agile promoted from the Scrum team, but the managers and stakeholders, they are very resistant, and that's quite common problem I can see. Doesn't matter sometimes how big is the organization. And that's fake quite easily because the management stakeholders, they maybe used to do project management, waterfall, whatever, but that's not really agile, right? It's not that flexible. And that's a problem. And in this case, I talked mostly to management stakeholders why they don't invested some resources to get more familiar with agile before that was integrated, or implemented, because people want to do it. They have Scrum Masters or product owners and Scrum team. They know, they have knowledge. Maybe they came from other organization, very familiar with agile way of working or some frameworks, but managers and stakeholders, and they resist. And I say that's the space where Agile Coach can come and really educate the management and stakeholders, make some workshops, make them more familiar, and then implement the agile values from the top and go to the next level managers and employees and Scrum teams, product owners, and others. That's one example when I see kind of resistance from managers and stakeholders. Sometimes I come to the organization, they're very big, they implement some of the skills, agile frameworks, they try for 1 year, but still they don't see results. So they try to kind of shifting or adjust or customize, which is fine. We are able to customize the frameworks. But sometimes I suggest they're just pretending to doing something. So that's probably a change where they can try another framework from Agile, more suitable and not so much heavy when it comes to responsibility and roles. And use this in a small team, and then go maybe one department and maybe use, Scrum or other frameworks which are not that heavy or connected, to control and other things.
We're coming on to quite nearly on for the hour soon. I can't really have a conversation, and I haven't really been pushing this really over the last couple of months as things have started to ramp up, but I probably should. It really is about AI and how do you think AI will impact on agile adoption, on agile tooling, over the coming 6, 12? The pace of the AI is incredible. And how do you obviously it's going to affect all facets of our life, but from an agile perspective and the way that we do that agile and way that we implement agile, do you see AI? Where do you see AI impacting on that?
Well, as we can see, AI exploded the last few months, and companies really trying it or exploring it. And I think AI we should see as a tool which help us be more effective, accomplish more. For example, software team, right? It's already AI kind of writing documentation. It's not perfect, but it's getting there. There's also AI in GitHub. Microsoft really pushing AI a lot. We will see soon a release of Copilot, right, in big organizations, where it's kind of helping us be more productive. AI might perform some tests, for releases before we go to the public with the software, can help us make processes faster and simple. I don't see AI as a replacement of some function in the software development, as I see AI as a tool which help us be more productive and accomplish maybe more in a short period of time. It's good to explore AI and try new things, but also be careful because, we're giving a lot of information to big organization and we don't know where the information end up. So yeah, be careful what we do, but we should be open for exploration.
About the fact that and it's popping in my head there, is that there's probably quite a bit of legacy code knocking around in lots of organizations where documentation hasn't been that great. or documentation has disappeared. And then you'll be looking at that code, and you'll have to have a developer or an architect, engineer going through that line by line and trying to understand what it does, what table constraints might be on there, all these different things. And I suppose that's an opportunity going forward, where using that automation thing is kind of right. Go through it, find all of the different routes through this code. There's your document. Okay, so that's what we've written there. Right. So again, test wise, you can automate that testing, and if not just automate the testing, but automate the identification of the tests that you should be doing, as well as documenting what it's doing. I can see that. I'd not thought about that before. Just whether you meant it. I've seen the things where people are using it. I've used it myself, actually. I was as an experiment, I was trying to use ChatGPT to write a plugin to Chrome to download my ChatGPT chats, and I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know how to create a Google plugin extension, and I managed to get an extension that ran, compiled, didn't quite do what I wanted to perfectly, but with no knowledge whatsoever of how to do that. And it took me an hour to be able to generate something like that, which absolutely shocked me. And I just, that kind of thing is gonna, you can see that speeding up of that developer sort of real gnarly bits, and rather than the hack away bits, it's their interpretation, their best way of doing it, that they'll be able to work out and use that, and they'll be able to use their power that way. But then I can see the agility side of it, of that, of how does it impact it? Because the pace of what we'll do, in theory, will become quicker, and you may have those self-managing teams, or maybe we'll have self-managing bots for a little while, and then a QA expert developer checking it afterwards. I don't know, and I know that kind of galls with a lot of people on the fact that the actual creation of the art, which is in some ways coding, is an art form, a bit like, and that's where a lot of the joy comes from, not the actual output. That changes the dynamic of those teams and what they're doing and what they're contributing. To me, it feels like it's going to be a fascinating future and terrifying.
For me, it's also fascinating, and also you have to be careful how we use the AI, right?
Yeah.
Because AI is getting smarter and smarter every single day. As you mentioned, you created your plugin for the Google Chrome. There are already AI kind of platforms where AI can create a website for you. AI can create even application without coding it. So that means software development, it's also open other people without knowing the code, which is quite fascinating, because we are able to perform something without coding and have background even in IT or software development. Maybe the competition might be harder, but I think it's also open opportunity to a lot of other people's.
Yeah, it's changing,
It
isn't
is
it?
fascinating, but also
evolving.
quite scary.
And this is what happens with all industrial revolutions, and we all know that, is that it changes the dynamic of the work we're doing. It's actually, I think there was something I was reading, this is the first time that it's kind of impacting on white collar workers as much, whereas most of these revolutions of technology is generally impacted on blue collar worker roles and jobs. Now it's stepping into that white collar. There seems to be a bit more hoo-ha, isn't it? When you start saying, right, it's going to be easier to use AI to work out a lawyer's pitch than it will be to have a lawyer sitting trawling through papers and evidence. That makes you think, well, yeah, and those people who are making very large sums for doing that have not all that knowledge, and you kind of press a button and it does half the work. You obviously need more stuff on top of it, but it does half the work for them, doesn't it?
Yes, you're right. And there are already some tools which, for example, instead of hire some agency to write a report to airlines for lost luggage, you can do it with assistant of AI. Just a few clicks, costs less, but is more efficient. It's quite scary, but also It's a new technology. Imagine 10 years ago, we have kind of first AI, kind of Siri, first assistant. We use it, then other companies also integrate it. And we have the smart speakers, right? 4 or 5 years ago. And then a car company also integrated the assistant in the cars. And now, like last 7, 8 months, the AI just exploded because now have smart chatbots, can code for you code, can also find information on the internet, can write you essay, can generate you picture, even a video, or human voice, which is generated by AI. It's very difficult to even recognize sometimes it's human or AI. And this is just the beginning. And now we can see even AI is creating application without coding. So where we will be next 6 months, like 2024.
Yeah.
It's quite scary, but also exciting.
Just we kind of come up on time now. It's kind of, if people want to talk more, find out, get involved with you, or find out, just stalk you on internet or whatever, where's the best place for them to get in touch?
Sure. The best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn to search for my name, Ondrej Papanek. You can also look at my webpage, itmanagement.consulting, about my services. And also if you look at on Miroverse, you can search for retrospective templates and also one
and Ondrej, for those listening and not watching
there.
and maybe not looked at the thing, it's spelled Ondrej, and it's Papanek. Now, all the links will be in the show notes anyway. Well, thank you for that really interesting conversation, Ondrej. It's Scrum and where it's going, and Scrum and how it's evolving. Every year there's something slightly different in it, and I get more intrigued by it all as time goes on. So, and I imagine that you, seen the changes over the last few years. So, get in touch with Ondrej if you want to find out more. And again, thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Cheers.
Thank you so much. I have a wonderful evening.
Wrong button.
Cheers.
How was that?
Another great sponsor of the show, it comes in the form of Air Manual. Air Manual is it's a tool for documenting process, which and best practices. It's a company formed by one of my interviewees, Alexis Kingsbury. Essentially, and I kind of summarised why my view of where we see documentation, and my experience has been, people will document something, a process, they'll put it in a Visio diagram that gets loaded onto a SharePoint site or something similar, and then a bunch of that. So then once that diagram's been shared with senior management, they're happy they have a process in the business. But then the detailed procedures underneath it might be in Word documents, in just poorly kept and not linked easily and not updated. And what Air Manual does, it allows you to put in it's a tool for doing this kind of thing. You whack it in, the service in there, get in there, put in your process, your flow, and you build it down to as low a level of detail, even to the point of checklists where people can check off they've done it. So it creates that guided checklists, easy to create, easy to maintain, and all in one place. And no one's kind of rooting around to find the SharePoint, and then when you change to new SharePoint services and all that stuff, it's all there. So if you pop along to nigelpriester.com/airmanual, there's a bit more detail there and a link there to click on to go and get. I think they offer a trial and things like that. So it's something that I think can easily reduce the amount of errors, rework, etc. within our organisations. So take a look. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Ondrej, and come back next week for another brilliant guest. Cheers now, bye. So this is my final wrap up. Every week you're going to hear this, you're going to get bored of it, but you can always click next podcast if so. If you have enjoyed it, if you've listened to this podcast to the end of this show and you think that was great, I'd love to be able to help Nigel out. There are loads of ways you can do it. The first and obvious way is to share the podcast, send it out to people. If you know colleagues and friends who'd benefit from it, you think they'd enjoy it, just send them the link. Grab one of the links, or send them to www.nigelcreaser.com/podcasts. That's www.nigelcreaser.com/podcasts, and that will push them over to a Linktree link, and it's got all of the different ways they can consume the podcast. If you are feeling generous and have a big bag of cash, you could grab a copy of one of my books. Obviously, they're available in all the usual places, in print and digital. Again, jump on the website, www.nigelcreaser.com/shop, and that will give you a list of all the different ways that you can contribute and grab copies of the book. Also got links to all my guests' books on there as well, where I get a little bit of a kickback from them. If you are of a sporting mind, I have a number through doing some of my judo and running antics. I've managed to secure a few affiliate links and affiliates there as well. So in there, somewhere in the sponsors page, there's links to those as well. So clicking onto those and grabbing if you're looking to get super fit, then that would be fabulous as well. And I get a little kickback from those. I have a Patreon account. It's patreon.com/sundaylunchpm. So again, you can ping something in there, buy me a coffee or whatever. And finally, obviously the most important is coming back, listen again, because the more of you that come back, the more visibility I get, because there's more times that it's downloaded and all the SEO works and things like that. So yeah, that's it. So if you can help me out, I would be much appreciated. If you can't, don't worry about it. Thank you very much. Cheers now. Bye. My latest, the latest affiliate that I've got on the show now is Riverside. I use Riverside to do my interviews, Riverside FM. It kind of offers you a whole, if you like, micro studio management producer tooling and goes beyond that. Has a really good free layer. And I've been using it for a while now. I find it really good. When I've had issues, even though I'm not on one of the higher paid levels, the support has been quick, responsive and of high quality, and people keen to help me. The organisation seems really good. The product seems really intuitive. And quality is really good as well. And it's a clever way of doing it is when you're recording through your browsers, so you've not got loads of desktop resources being used compared to some other products that I've used. And what they also do is they stream a lower quality version of it up onto as you're doing the interview, so you're not burning bandwidth while you're doing the interview and potentially impacting on the quality of the conversation. And then at the end, it uploads it, the higher quality from your browser. It's just a really good way of doing it. So if you are thinking of doing a podcast and know someone who's doing a podcast, I would recommend using this tool. I found it really good. Best of the tools that I've tried using to date. And you can get that at nigelcreaser.com/riverside, and that will redirect you to my kickback page on their site, and there I will get a little kickback from them. So take a look. Thanks. Well, it's goodbye from me, Nigel Creaser, and it's goodbye from him, the Sunday Lunch PM. Goodbye.